Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services of Eastland. Tune in every Monday morning at 8:30 on KATX, and again on Saturday morning at 9 on KATX and KWBY as Angela Robinson joins Terry Slavens to share important financial information to help you live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, estate and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
And welcome into Life Planning 101. We have not one, but two stand-ins today. Blakeney Hodges stepping in for Terry Slavens, and in place of Angela Robinson, we have Mr. Jim Kennedy.
Well, thank you, Blakeney. Glad to be here this morning, and good morning, everyone. Hope everybody's having a great morning today, and we're going to talk about the top 5 mistakes that business owners make. And being an entrepreneur and a business owner pretty much all my life, we've seen a lot. But before we talk about that, Blakeney, what I'd like to really say is, for a business owner to succeed, you really needs to have a passion. And if you without that passion, that business owner is probably not going to succeed, because assuming that you do have the passion, a high degree of success is much more probable. And I really believe it's an I can attitude instead of an I will attitude, because, people constantly think about, I can do this, but, you have to know that you can do it. And there's a big difference. And you're going to make the sacrifices necessary to make that business succeed. And it's a gut feeling that you have as a business owner to see what the priorities are of that business, those business decisions are every day as you go through the day. And I think that gut feeling and that passion is what makes you succeed, because you will have failures.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Absolutely. So because of that drive and passion, the next thing, obvious to running a business, you got to have cash. And that's a big mistake. A lot of people go into business without knowing exactly what their cash needs to be, their cash reserves. And you really need to know what your budget is. So you're going to have to spend some time on that and think about all your expenses, everything that you're going to need to spend money for. And whether you're running an ice cream stand or running a multi-million-dollar business, it's a huge mistake not to know what those dollars need to be able to pay those bills, because you're going to have lots of fluctuations. You're going to have good days, good weeks, bad months, good months. But you need to lay that out. Determine what your expenses are going to be for the next 6 months and where the cash is going to come from. So it's extremely important. There's always a time when things don't turn out the way that you're supposed to. And the worst thing it can happen to a business is you need money and you have no place to get it. Mm-hmm. So it's you want to have a good relationship with your banker. Make sure you arrange to have money when you need dollars, and try not to get too much in debt, because the debt becomes the stranglehold on the business, and everything that you bring in has to be paid back in debt. So you really want to run that thing efficiently and make sure that you're not doing the things that's going to cause it to fail. So it's very important. And that relationship with that banker or your money people is very important. Another common mistake about money is depending on plastic. A lot of people think, well, I'll just use my credit cards to run their business. And there's nothing wrong with running that money through your credit cards to get the points, to get the cash back.
If you're paying them off.
If you're paying them off, but you got to pay them off every month.
There's that interest.
That's right. And don't consider credit cards as an alternative for your bank. Compound interest, that interest they charge you, the late fees, and it has to be paid on time, and that's very, very expensive way to do business. So don't ever look for credit cards to be your banker. Always you have a banker. And debt. There's nothing wrong with good debt. There's everything wrong with bad debt. Mm-hmm. And so if you've got something that's going to back that debt up, then that's a good thing, because that's usually an asset that's going to grow. It's like a home. If you buy a house, you're paying it off, and you've got cash flow to pay it, then that house is going to increase in equity over time. So if you bought a piece of real estate to run your business out of, that's good debt. Buying something that's going to depreciate, that's not such good debt, because it's when you sell it, it's going to be an automatic loss of money. You see it all the time. Business owners go out and buy something because they get a write-off on it. So they need to sell it 3 years from now. What's the value of it? And it may not be worth anything.
Yeah.
So it's a big danger. So you really need to look at what you buy, what you spend money on, because people think that paying taxes is a bad thing, but really that means you've got profit. So taxes aren't always a bad thing, but buying things you don't need just to get the write-off could be a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, let's take our first break here on the show today, and then we come back some more, I'd say, smart tips for business owners, also some of the mistakes that business owners typically make. But it is Life Planning 101, and it's right here on KATX and KWBY. And welcome in, welcome back, and welcome along. It is Life Planning 101 right here on KATX, KWBY. Blakeney Hodges sitting in for Mr. Terry Slavens, and we're joined by Jim Kennedy.
Yeah, we're back again.
Back again.
I want to be sure and tell everyone to be sure and follow us on Twitter at KFS Life Planning and answer our weekly poll. How often do you sit down and evaluate your business? And whether it's every quarter, every year, or I've never done a business evaluation. So we'd like to know, we'd like to hear from you. So be sure and do that. So moving on with the mistakes and maybe some ideas on too about running a business. Another mistake that we see occur with people is a mix of their personal and business finances. It's tempting to cross that line and put everything through your business. And IRS, however, doesn't agree with that. So you have to be really careful. They're really good at recognizing that that's a house payment, not a business payment. So people try to write off a lot of things that maybe they shouldn't. I'd recommend you have a meeting with your accountant, CPA, your tax person. Make sure that you're keeping good records. It's very, very important. If you ever get audited and you don't have the records, the IRS is going to assume that it's not, that's not legitimate. So, one of the recommendations that I make, especially a lot of people are traveling in their cars all the time, is take an 8.5 by 11 envelope, and every time you buy something, that receipt, get a receipt, always get a receipt, write a little note on it, what it's for, put it in that envelope, and then hand it to your bookkeeper, or if you do your own books, then at the end of the month, you've got every receipt you ever used. And a credit card is a wonderful vehicle to keep up with all the expenses.
Yeah,
paper trail. But that paper trail is important. And if the IRS sees that you keep good records and you do get audited, they're not likely to discredit the deductions that you have there because you've kept good records. But be sure you know what those deductions are. So it's a good, you can buy all kinds of books. You can go on our website. We have all kinds of information about business owners, and just do your homework. That's really important because it's nothing more nerve-wracking than having an auditor sitting there across the table from you, and he's asking you questions, and you don't know the answers. But if you can pull out a receipt and say, yes, I met with this person. I was on this trip to this business meeting. There's a lot of validity in that. So be sure you keep good records. Want to make sure that you're making money in your business. It's so important to look at your records every month and see, did I make a profit? Where's my expenses? Go through it line item. I know I talk a lot about budgeting, but on a personal side, but it's just as important on a business side. Take your monthly budget, look at it, every check you write, every expense that you have, and look at that monthly, and then compare last month and this month, and then compare quarterly, and then keep that routine up, and you compare annually. And believe it or not, you will find a lot of expenses in your budgeting that you really are spending money on, maybe that you don't need to be. And you could change the way you spend your money and look at that and find where your profit is or find where your expenses are. So you've got to make money. You can't stay in business without profit.
Jim, I just wanted to say, I know whenever I was a younger adult, I feel like I'm still a young adult, but anyways, I didn't own a business, but just in terms of doing like my own budgeting, like when I graduated and gotten my first job, and I was, like paying my own bills. And that was one thing that my mom talked to me about. She said, we got a legal pad and we made all these columns for like utilities and, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, write down every single thing. And I'm like, even when I run to the dollar store, she's like, every single thing. She was like, I know you just think, Blakeney, oh, it's $2.18 or, oh, that's $7.50. she said, but if you will write it down and look at it every week or even every month, she said, you will start to see, she said, there's so many places you can cut corners. All of those little $2 here and $3 here and $4 here in a business, maybe bigger amounts. But you think, oh, well, it's $75. Yeah, go ahead. But when you write it down and see it, it makes it a lot easier to realize how much you are overspending in certain areas and be able to cut back and save that money.
You're so right, Blake. For years and years, back when water was free, I always say buy water, or get water and don't buy coffee or tea or Cokes, and see how much money you'll save in a year. And people now, you see these big drinks that are $2 a drink, when they could be drinking water, and you add that up over a period of time, it makes a big difference.
Well, yeah, and look at with like a family of 5.
Yeah,
I'm like, we're getting water at the restaurant. That's going to save us $15.
That's exactly right. So another mistake is not paying yourself. A lot of business owners try to operate everything out of the business, but cash is king, and your business has to make money. But if you went to work for someone else, I want you to think about the benefits that you'd want. Would you want to be putting money back for your IRA, for your children's education? I know everyone likes to go on vacation, get some time off, things that make your lifestyle better. You might want to have a bigger home. You might want to take your home and remodel it. So what would that compensation be if you worked for someone else? Well, if you're running that business, you've got to figure that in, because why are we running a business? It's for that freedom. It's for the opportunity to make more money. It's for the opportunity to have an asset that's going to grow, that someday that you're going to be able to sell that business, and that's where your real reward may come in. But as a business owner, our first instinct is to sacrifice our income for our business. But you can't fail to pay yourself, because that's what makes it worthwhile, is to be able to be a self-employed individual. Obviously, your business is building value, and like I said, you can be able to sell that, because one day you're actually going to have to you may have to put money back in that business, and what better banker out there than yourself? If you have money that you can loan the business, but again, I said loan, because you want it back.
Yeah, you want to replace it. Yeah.
So if you were borrowing money from the bank, you'd have to pay that back. So be sure that you pay yourself back, but save money, because I see businesses all the time been in business for 10, 20, 30 years, and they have no excess cash, and not personally or as a business. So we'll start on the next idea here in a second, but I want you to start living life on purpose. We just think that's so important. Find out right now on our website if you have enough money to retire successfully. We've got a great new web page that you can just go in and literally in just a couple of minutes tell whether or not that you're saving enough money to be able to retire. So as a business owner, guess what you're going to want to do someday? You're going to want to retire.
Yeah.
Well, we have the tool right there on our website now that you can go in and say, this is what I've got, this is what I'm saving, this is when I want to retire, and literally instantly it'll tell you if I'm doing what needs to be done.
You're going to be able to, yeah. What a wonderful asset to have. And that's at Kennedy-Financial.com, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, we have more to get to after this break, so keep it tuned here to Life Planning 101 on KATX and KWBY. And it's the final segment here for this marvelous Monday morning, Life Planning 101 right here on KATX and KWBY. Jim Kennedy in the house, and we are talking about some smart tips for business owners, also some mistakes they kind of don't want to make. Let's say that. Let's say that. Typically do and don't want to.
That's right. So got to try to be wise about what we do so we can stay in business. And the last final mistake or remark I'd like to make about running a business, after all the tough work of providing quality service and products, whatever you do, you've got to get paid. So make sure that you have a good accounting system. Records, we talked about that, but you've got to have an accounting system and a good follow-up system. Make sure that you know where you're at. You can take a snapshot picture, stay on top of it. Working on your business is probably as important, if not more so, than working in your business. You've got to work on your business to know where you're at. Hold people to the terms of your billing agreement. If you're providing a service, they've got to pay you. If they agreed to pay that 30 days, make sure that they're paying you. Hold them to it. You've provided them what you promised, and it's just, there's no reason why they shouldn't provide you what they promised. And a lot of people let that get behind because, it's real easy to say, well, I'll give you another week or two. Well, one way is, maybe get some money up front and then get paid weekly instead of waiting until the end of the month. Let's get paid as we go. A lot of people, will say, well, when the job's done, I'll pay you. Well, that's all good and fair, but how about getting paid as we go a little bit? And every business is run a little differently, so I can't sit here and say this is good across the board.
Yeah.
But if you have a business that you can get paid weekly, you have a lot less to lose if you don't get that final payment.
Yeah.
And everybody likes to guarantee their work, and they want to work with people that they really respect and know that they're going to do a good job. But again, you've got to get paid. Bottom line, one of the best things you can do is make sure you're doing business with the right kind of people, right fit people, we call them, the type of people that fit your business. Because if you're trying to just take anyone and everyone, sometimes that just doesn't work. We always say that progress starts by telling the truth. And who do you have to tell the truth to first? Yourself. And if you're not doing that, it may be better off walking away than you would be to go ahead and move on. Sometimes we look back at our business and realize that we've outgrown some of the people that we've been doing business with. And sometimes that could be not only just the people that you work for, but maybe professional people. Sometimes professional people don't want to go to that next level of accounting, doesn't want to go to the next level of, whatever they're doing to make sure that as a business, that's not their bailiwick. That's not what they do best. So if you need to change clients, the type of client, the level of client, it's a lot different than doing business with someone that's just one individual than going to work with a company that's got 50 employees. Big difference there. So from a professional standpoint, you have to look at who you're doing business with. Maybe you need to move to the next level. Sit down every quarter and be honest with yourself. See what's working in your business, what's not working. Well, and ask yourself that. Go through it line by line. As I mentioned, working on your business is probably as important, if not more so, than working in it. If you start running a piece of equipment as a small business, and someday you look at it and you say, well, look, I've got somebody else running that piece of equipment, and I'm doing something else. You've just grown your business.
Yeah.
You've moved to the next level. So how many pieces of equipment do you want to run, and how many pieces of equipment do you want someone else to run? So you got to look at that business and say, where's it going, and how am I going to get there, and have a plan. And I really encourage you to get professional help. It's when you go out there and try to do the job alone, you're having to think about everything that could ever go wrong. But get a mentor. Get someone you look up to. Go take them to lunch. Ask them some questions and get educated, because they're going to tell you the mistakes that they've made, and they want to help you. They want to help you succeed. Now, your competitor in your local area might not want to see you succeed.
I know. I just thought, if they're not their competition, but yes.
Yeah, but if there's people that you meet when you go places that maybe do a business similar to yours, don't be afraid to ask. I think most people want to help.
Yeah, I think they do too.
Yeah, and I really believe that. So let's talk about the best thing you can do, be prepared to go to that next level. Every part of your business will need to change, and you need to be ready to change with it. So you've got to have an open mind. You've got to think about what needs to take place with that growth of your business. So let's just go over those things that we discussed. And one is create an accurate budget and create a reserve. Make sure you've got money. Make sure you've got ways to get money. If you don't have it, a good line of credit. And I always mention to have 2 lines of credit. Sometimes banks quit loaning money to individuals, to industries, to sectors. You look back at, you remember when the automobile, industry fell apart. If you were in the auto business, you couldn't borrow money.
Yeah.
So you want to be really careful and not depend sometimes just on one source of money. Number 2 is don't fall into an unwise, costly financial practice to support your business. Don't use your credit cards. Make sure that you're not paying too much for your money. 3 is keep your business and personal finance and your records separate. Make sure that you've got good accounting system. Make sure you're talking to your accountant. Make sure you're talking to your attorney, your financial advisor, your insurance agent. Make sure you have the holes in the cheese covered is what we call it. But if you get sued, if you lose everything you have because you didn't take the time to prepare and make sure that you've got everything in place, that's a lot of work that's gone down the drain. You don't want that to happen. Pay yourself. we always say give as much as you can, and pay yourself as much as you can, and save as much as you can, because then you've got things in a priority, because you've got to have money to operate down the road, and it gives you a lot of peace of mind. And the last thing is stay on top of those accounts receivable. If people owe you money, don't be afraid to ask for them. They weren't afraid to ask you to work for them.
Absolutely.
And so make sure you get paid. And some people just will throw a fit and don't want to pay you because they'll find every excuse not to. But again, be honest with yourself. Find the right type of people to work for. Mm-hmm. We're all going to get taken advantage of at some point in time, but from then you learn by experience, become a little bit wiser, and it's not ever worth a fight, to worry about those type of things. But I hope this helps. I wish everyone the best of luck, and find out all you can from all the people around you. And I think still go back to the number one thing I said in the very beginning: you got to have passion. If you don't feel like you've got a passion for that business, and can develop a passion for it, that business may not succeed at all. But if you have that passion, don't let anybody tell you no. You can make it work. So be sure you subscribe to our weekly newsletter. It comes out Kennedy-Financial.com. It's got a lot of great past information in there. Angela does a good job of writing those articles every week. We discuss them, talk about them, and we run across a lot of things that happen. And I just want you to know, the experiences that you have in life, we've already experienced most of them because we've experienced them through other people. And so when you go to look for that help, what place to get it than right off our website, because we've probably talked about it. And if we hadn't, you can give us a call, or you can send us questions through lifeplanning@Kennedy-Financial.com. We welcome those questions. We want you to get in touch with us. We want to be there for you. And you can listen to our rebroadcast of this show on KATXradio.com, KWVYradio.com, and Kennedy-Financial.com, in addition to iTunes and iHeartRadio. Thank you for listening in today.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services of Eastland. Tune in every Monday morning at 8:30 on KATX, and again on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock on KATX and KWBY for more Life Planning 101.
Advisory services offered through Smart Money Group, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Securities offered through Calton & Associates Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Kennedy Financial Services Incorporated is an independent of Calton & Associates Incorporated and Smart Money Group, LLC.